14 groups made a decision they thought was smart. Cut the problem, bring in someone new, keep building. And in most cases, the group survived. Some of them kept making hits. Some of them had long respected careers, but not a single one of them reached the height of the person they let go. You know these voices. You grew up with them. You've heard these songs so many times they feel like memory. You didn't grow up with the group. You grew up with the name on the album cover, the solo name. And most of you, if we're being honest, had no idea there was a group first. A group that looked at this specific voice and said, "We don't need you anymore." Looks like another love TKO, baby. From a teenager who got voted out of his own group at 17, to a woman who found out she was fired by watching a music video on television, to a singer who walked out of a gospel quartet with nothing but her name and 36 cents. We're counting down 14 R&B singers who got replaced and then became more famous than the group that dropped them. This one goes deep. Number 14, Marvin Gaye. The group, Harvey and the Moonglows. Before he was the man who wrote What's Going On, before I Heard It Through the Grapevine, before Let's Get It On, played at every dinner and slow drive home and school dance you can remember, Marvin Gaye was singing background in someone else's group. Here's what most people don't know. When Marvin was 19 years old, hanging around the music scene in Washington, D.C., he caught the ear of Harvey Fuqua, the lead singer of the Moonglows, one of the most respected doo-wop acts in the country. Harvey brought him in, gave him a shot. In 1959, Marvin was recording with Harvey and the Moonglows for Chess Records. He was background, he was support. He was the new kid in a group that Harvey had built. Then Harvey dissolved the Moonglows and moved the whole operation to Motown in 1960. And here's where everything changed. Marvin didn't go as a group member. He signed with Motown as a solo artist. The Moonglows were gone. Harvey Fuqua would go on to work as a producer and executive, and Marvin Gaye became one of the most important musicians in American history. How Sweet It Is in 1965. I Heard It Through the Grapevine in 1968. Number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 7 consecutive weeks. Let's Get It On in 1973. Sexual Healing in 1982. Songs that didn't just chart, songs that changed how we talk about love and loss and what we need from each other. Harvey Fuqua never saw that coming, and if you're nodding right now, you've known at least 3 of those songs for your entire adult life. The Moonglows had a career. Marvin Gaye had a legacy. That's number 14. Coming in at 13, a name you know from a Saturday morning with Soul Train, and a story you probably don't. Number 13, Jodie Watley. The group, Shalimar. You probably know Shalimar. A Night to Remember. The second time around, dead giveaway. Tight choreography, clean fashion, one of the most underappreciated groups of the early 80s. But here's the part that changes how you hear all of it. The woman who walked out that door in 1983 walked straight to a Grammy Award. Jodie Watley came up as a Soul Train dancer, not background. A featured dancer, the kind that made teenagers practice in mirrors. She and Jeffrey Daniel became the visual face of Shalimar. Howard Hewitt carried most of the lead vocals, but Jodie's energy was part of what made that group magnetic. After 5 years and multiple albums, Jodie left. There were financial disputes, disagreements about direction. She packed up, moved to London, and started over from scratch. Lisa Davis came in to fill her spot. And here's what happened next. Shalimar never recaptured the classic era. The lineup that made those records was gone. Jodie came back in 1987 with her self-titled debut album on MCA. Looking for a new love. Don't you want me? Some kind of lover. 3 top 10 singles on the Billboard Hot 100. Then they called her name at the Grammys. Best New Artist, 1988. The woman they replaced was collecting Grammy hardware while her replacement was still learning the choreography. And whether that's justice or irony or both, I'll let you decide. That's number 13. The next name put a song at number 3 on the Hot 100. You still know every word. Curiosity rules my brain. Real talk. Only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's $1 coffee a month, and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it. Number 12, Sisqo. The group, Dru Hill. Dru Hill was a real group from Baltimore, real talent, real run. In My Bed in 1996, Never Make a Promise, We're Not Making Love No More. That's a legitimate catalog. And Sisqo was the lead voice through all of it. In 1999, he went solo. And in January 2000, Thong Song hit radio. Now, if you were alive in 2000, you already know what happened next. That record was everywhere. Car radios, school hallways, family reunions where nobody was prepared for it. Thong Song peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and spent 2 weeks at number 1 on the R&B chart. The album, Unleash the Dragon, sold over 10 million copies worldwide. Sisqo performed at the Super Bowl halftime show. He was, for a full 12 months, one of the biggest names in pop music. Dru Hill tried to keep things going. They attempted a reunion album, and during the press conference to announce it, one of the members quit on camera, stood up, walked out, and left. The group imploded in front of the media. Meanwhile, Sisqo was touring arenas. Some of y'all remember that press conference and still can't believe it actually happened, but it did. Dru Hill built a real career. Sisqo took the voice that led that career, added a silver hair dye job and a full production budget, and made the group they came from a footnote in his story. That's number 12, 11 names left, and the deeper we go, the more it costs to replace the wrong person. Number 11, Luther Vandross. The group Change. For most of the 1970s, Luther Vandross was a voice behind the voice. He sang backup for David Bowie, for Diana Ross, for Bette Midler. He sang on records for Chic. He wrote commercial jingles for Kentucky Fried Chicken and Burger King. He was brilliant, sought after, and invisible. That changed in 1980. A French-Italian music executive named Jacques Fred Petrus had assembled a studio band called Change in Bologna, Italy. They needed an American vocalist to finish 2 songs on their debut album. They called Luther. He came in, recorded The Glow of Love and Searching, and created 2 of the most gorgeous post-disco records anyone had heard that year. The Glow of Love sold well. Petrus wanted Luther back for album 2. Luther turned it down, said they weren't paying enough. Change kept recording. New vocalists came in. The group had more releases and a few more hits. But that voice, that specific voice, was gone. Here's what Luther did next. He took the demo from those Change sessions to Epic Records. He told them he wanted to write everything, produce everything, and sing everything himself. Epic signed him, and in 1981, Never Too Much dropped. It went to number 1 on the R&B albums chart immediately. Then he released another album, and another, and another. Over the course of the 1980s, Luther Vandross became the defining voice of adult contemporary soul. The record you played for someone when words weren't enough. A House Is Not a Home. Here and Now, Dance With My Father. 4 Grammy Awards, over 20 million albums sold. Change went on, but be honest with yourself right now. When you hear the name Luther Vandross, you don't think of an Italian studio band. You think of you, late night, somebody close, that voice doing something to you that you still can't fully explain. The group he declined to return to never got that back. Number 10, LeToya Luckett. Come home. A part of me says I'm living a lie. The group, Destiny Child. Here's how you find out you've been fired from the group you helped build since childhood. You're watching television. A music video comes on, and 2 girls you've never met are standing exactly where you used to stand. That's how LeToya Luckett found out. It was February 2000. The Say My Name video premiered on TRL. Michelle Williams and Farrah Franklin were in her spot. LeToya and LaTavia Robertson, 2 founding members of what would become Destiny's Child, 2 women who had been grinding with this group since they were little girls in Houston, were gone. No phone call, no conversation, no warning. A part of me says more of you. A part of me. They had made the mistake of writing a letter in late 1999 asking for a separate business manager for Matthew Knowles. By morning, they were out. LeToya spent years in the fallout. During the lawsuit, the public drama, trying to find what came next, she tried a girl group, she opened a boutique, she rebuilt one step at a time. A part of me wants to leave you alone. A part of me wants for you. Then in July 2006, her self-titled debut album dropped, and it debuted at number 1 on the U.S. Billboard 200. Here's the detail that still gets me. LeToya Luckett and Beyonce Knowles are the only 2 members of Destiny's Child to ever have a debut album go to number 1 on the Billboard 200 and achieve platinum status in the United States. The girl they replaced on TV, she went platinum. And if you were watching when that Say My Name video first came on, you know exactly what that vindication felt like, even from a distance. A part of me is asking why. Number 9, Casey and JoJo. The group, Jodeci. If you came up in the 90s, Jodeci needs no introduction. Come and talk to me. Freaking you, lately. Devontae Swing and his crew were running R&B so hard that even their aesthetic, Timberlands, hoodies, raw energy, became a whole era. Casey and JoJo were the voices of Jodeci, literally. The 2 Haley brothers from North Carolina, Cedric and Joel, were the ones delivering on every record. 3 platinum albums between 1991 and 1995. Then Jodeci went on hiatus. And the brothers looked at each other and said, let's try something different. They stripped everything back, took the gritty swagger out entirely, went pure ballad, orchestrated, tender, acoustic driven, the kind of record that sounded nothing like what Jodeci was known for. Their debut as Casey and JoJo dropped in 1997, and then early 1998, All My Life hit radio. It went to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 3 weeks straight. Jodeci's biggest chart hit, Lately, peaked at number 4. Casey and JoJo took the same 2 voices, changed the entire sound, and went higher than the group they came from ever went. And here's the detail JoJo shared that people still don't know. He wrote All My Life as a tribute to his 7-year-old daughter. Not a romantic partner, his daughter. The most played wedding ballad of the late 90s was a father writing about his little girl. Sometimes the story behind the song makes the song hit different. That's number 9, 8 names left, and from here the stakes get higher. Number 8, Bobby Brown.
They say I'm crazy.
The group, New Edition. Bobby Brown helped start New Edition. He was there when it was 5 kids from the Orchard Park housing projects in Boston, performing for anyone who would watch. He was part of the foundation. In December 1985, the other members voted him out. He was 17 years old. The reasons were real. Missed shows, on-stage fights, the kind of behavior that gets a teenager voted off his own project. New Edition continued as a quartet, then brought in Johnny Gill in 1987 to fill the slot Bobby left empty. And then Bobby Brown did something that surprised almost everyone who saw it coming. In 1988, he released Don't Be Cruel. The album went multi-platinum. It sat at number 1 on the Billboard 200 for 6 weeks. My Prerogative hit number 1. Every Little Step hit number 1. Don't Be Cruel hit number 1.
It's the way that I wanna live.
Bobby Brown didn't just survive being fired from New Edition. He defined an entire sonic era. Every teenage bedroom, every house party, every high school hallway in America in 1988 and 1989. And here's the detail that speaks volumes. New Edition's best-selling album after Bobby left, Heartbreak in 1988, was made with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, featuring the new member, Johnny Gill. It's a genuinely great album, double platinum, 5 hit singles, but it was made in direct response to how well Bobby was doing. Michael Bivins, one of the members who voted Bobby out, later said in a 2023 interview that it was kind of wrong for them to do it the way they did it. That admission came 38 years later. Bobby Brown's solo career got its answer in 1988. That's number 8. The second half of this list carries the weight of names that changed music entirely. Number 7, Smokey Robinson. The group, The Miracles. Smokey Robinson didn't get kicked out of The Miracles. Let me say that clearly. He chose to leave. In 1972, after 17 years, after helping Berry Gordy build Motown from a Detroit row house into a national empire, he stepped back. Inch by inch we get closer and closer. Billy Griffin came in to replace him. And here's the thing, Billy Griffin could sing. The Miracles survived. They had real moments. Do It Baby hit in 1974, and Love Machine went to number 1 on the pop charts in 1975. So the group didn't fall apart. Just release and you will find. But Smokey Robinson's solo career became something no one fully anticipated. He struggled a little at first. It's hard to follow your own legend. But in 1975, he recorded A Quiet Storm, and that album accidentally created a radio format. The Quiet Storm format, smooth love ballads that played at every dinner date and late night drive and quiet Sunday morning, was named after a Smokey Robinson album. He built the template for a whole genre of radio, almost without trying. Then in 1979, Cruisin' became one of the most seductive singles in pop music history. And in 1981, Being With You went to number 1. The Miracles disbanded in 1978. Smokey Robinson was still releasing number 1 records in 1987. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist in 1987. The Miracles weren't inducted until 2012, a 25-year gap. Bob Dylan once said Smokey Robinson was America's greatest living poet. That line was meant for the man who left, not the group he left behind. Number 6, Lionel Richie.
Sometimes see you pass outside my door.
The group, the Commodores. In 1982, Lionel Richie officially left the Commodores. J.D. Nicholas came in to fill his role, and on paper, it looked like a calculated, manageable transition. Then Can't Slow Down came out in 1983.
Until you time and time again.
That album sold 10 million copies. It went to number 1 in more than 30 countries. All Night Long hit number 1. Hello hit number 1. Stuck on You hit number 1. Can't Slow Down won the Grammy for Album of the Year.
'Cause you know just what to say.
Lionel Richie had become, with one record, one of the most commercially dominant artists on the planet. Now, the Commodores didn't disappear, and I want to be fair here. In 1985, they released Night Shift, a tribute to Marvin Gaye and Jackie Wilson that is genuinely one of the most beautiful R&B recordings of that decade.
The sunlight, your hair.
It won the Grammy for Best R&B Performance by a Duo or Group. That's real. But by the mid-'80s, Lionel Richie had sold over 100 million records. He'd been nominated for more than a dozen Grammy Awards. He had simultaneous number 1 singles in dozens of countries.
Tell you so much. I love you.
And if you've ever slow danced to 3 Times a Lady at a school dance without knowing who the Commodores even were until you looked it up later, that's the whole story right there. Lionel Richie was the sound. The Commodores were the vehicle. When he left, the sound left with him.
My heart will overflow.
Number 5, Teddy Pendergrass.
But another fight. Things ain't right. I'm losing again.
The group, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. Here's something that sounds almost too good to be true. Teddy Pendergrass was hired to play drums. He wasn't supposed to sing.
Took control of me. Caused me to lose all.
Harold Melvin needed a drummer for the Blue Notes. Teddy was available, and that was the arrangement. But at some point during a live performance, Teddy started singing along from behind the kit. Harold Melvin heard him, and the entire direction of the group changed in a single moment. The Blue Notes had been working for 15 years without a significant breakthrough. Teddy stepped to the front in 1970. They signed with Philadelphia International Records in 1971. Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff took one listen at rehearsal and immediately understood exactly what they had. If you don't know me by now, The Love I Lost, Don't Leave Me This Way, Wake Up Everybody. These were not minor hits. These were anthems, records that played at every black gathering you can picture, family reunions, basement parties, Sunday dinners with the radio on in the kitchen. And they were anthems because of that voice. That urgent, aching, commanding baritone that made grown people stop mid-sentence and just listen. Teddy knew his value. He pushed for the group to be renamed Teddy Pendergrass and the Blue Notes because fans kept assuming he was Harold Melvin. Melvin wasn't interested. The money disputes escalated. And in 1975, Teddy quit. Harold replaced him with David Ebo. The Blue Notes left Philadelphia International, and they never had another major hit, not one significant chart moment. Teddy had been the entire engine of that machine. His solo debut in 1977 went platinum. His second album went platinum. His third, his fourth, his fifth, 5 consecutive platinum solo albums. A record at the time for a black R&B male artist. And then in March 1982, his car hit a guardrail in Philadelphia. Teddy Pendergrass was paralyzed from the chest down. He was 31 years old. The music didn't stop. His voice never left. He came back to the stage at Live Aid in 1985, performing in a wheelchair in front of 99,000 people in his hometown of Philadelphia. And everyone in that stadium knew exactly who they were looking at.
All this love affair ain't working out for me. Oh no, oh no.
Number 4, David Ruffin. The group, The Temptations. David Ruffin sang Lead on My Girl and Ain't Too Proud to Beg and I Wish It Would Rain and I Know I'm Losing You. You've heard those records. If you're of a certain age, some of those songs were playing when the most important things in your life happened. They were that embedded. In June 1968, The Temptations voted to fire him. The reasons were real. He was using cocaine. He was missing shows. He had skipped a Cleveland engagement to go watch his new girlfriend, Dean Martin's daughter, perform instead. He wanted the group renamed David Ruffin and The Temptations, the same billing Diana Ross had gotten with the Supremes.
I feel sisters to the touch.
The other members drew up legal papers and signed his firing on June 27, 1968. Dennis Edwards came in to replace him the next day. And then David Ruffin did something almost nobody expected. He started showing up at their concerts anyway, not backstage, on stage. He would walk out mid-performance, take the microphone from Dennis Edwards' hands, and just start singing his songs, the ones he'd led, the ones the crowd knew by heart, and the crowds went absolutely wild. For weeks, Dennis Edwards would just stand there and let it happen. Because what do? David's solo career had real moments. My Whole World Ended hit the top 10 in 1969. Walk Away From Love hit the top 10 in 1975. He had a voice that could not be ignored, but his story doesn't end with redemption. It ends on June 1st, 1991, in a Philadelphia hospital after a cocaine overdose. He was 50 years old. The Temptations remain one of the great groups in American music. And David Ruffin is part of the reason why, even from the outside looking in, long after he was gone. That's number 4. 3 names left, and the last 3 are the reason this countdown exists. Number 3, Sam Cooke.
Ever since it's been a long...
The group, the Soul Stirrers. I need you to sit with this one for a moment. It is 1956. Sam Cooke is the lead singer of the Soul Stirrers, one of the most celebrated gospel groups in America. He's been with them since he was 19. Women fainted at gospel concerts to get closer to him. He had turned the Soul Stirrers into the most magnetic live act on the gospel circuit. And one day, he decides to make secular music. The fallout was immediate. In the gospel world of the 1950s, crossing over wasn't a career choice. It was considered a spiritual betrayal. Sam recorded his first pop single in 1956 under the fake name Dale Cook, just to hide it from his gospel audience. It didn't fool anyone. His voice was too distinctive, too specific. People recognized it immediately.
A long time coming, but I know.
When the full news got out, the church community turned its back on him. Some congregations refused to mention his name. Sam was replaced in the Soul Stirrers by Johnny Taylor.
Ever since it's been.
Then in 1957, You Send Me went to number 1 on both the pop chart and the R&B chart simultaneously. 4 million copies sold. From a first single, and he was just getting started, 30 top 40 hits between 1957 and 1964. Chain Gang, Twisting the Night Away, Another Saturday Night, Wonderful World. And then in 1964, A Change Is Gonna Come, written partly in response to Bob Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind, because Sam felt that Black America needed its own answer to that song, a version with more weight, more history in it. He was also the first major Black artist to own his own publishing company, to negotiate his own record deals, and to understand the business side of what he was building. He was laying groundwork that artists decades later would still benefit from. Sam Cooke was shot and killed on December 11, 1964. He was 33 years old.
But I know a change gonna come.
The Soul Stirrers are a gospel legend. They are honored and celebrated within that tradition. But Sam Cooke became the king of soul. He became one of the pillars of American music. He became a name that people who don't even listen to R&B know. And it started with a group that let him go, or that he had to leave, to become who he was always going to be. That's number 3. 2 names left, and I promise you, both of them deliver on everything this countdown promised. Number 2, Diana Ross. The group, The Supremes. On January 14th, 1970, Diana Ross stood on a stage at the Frontier Hotel in Las Vegas and said goodbye to the Supremes. She introduced her replacement, Jean Terrell, to the audience that night. She hugged her bandmates, and then that chapter was over. The Supremes had 12 number 1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100. 12. That's a standard most artists never approach across their entire careers. And with Diana out front, they were the most commercially successful American vocal group in history. Question in 1970 was the same one it always is when someone that's central leaves. Can she do this alone? She could. Her second solo single, Ain't No Mountain High Enough, went to number 1 in 1970. Touch Me in the Morning, number 1 in 1973. Theme from Mahogany, number 1 in 1975. Love Hangover, number 1 in 1976. Upside Down, number 1 in 1980.
These old days, if you should ever miss the arms that used to hold you so.
Endless Love, the duet with Lionel Richie, number 1 in 1981. 6 solo number 1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100. Over 100 million records sold. An Academy Award nomination for her film debut in Lady Sings the Blues. 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, the Kennedy Center Honors, the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, twice.
Always have me. And if you should miss my loving.
John Terrell led a version of the Supremes that had real moments. Stone Love in 1970 was a genuine hit. The group had a following, a legacy worth honoring, but by 1977, the Supremes had disbanded. Diana Ross was still releasing music in the 1980s, in the 1990s, in the 2000s, in the 2010s. The Supremes without Diana Ross lasted 7 years. Diana Ross without the Supremes built a 50-year career that is still ongoing. The group she left behind is part of the story. She became the whole story. Number 1, Tina Turner. The group, Ike and Tina Turner. In 1976, after 16 years, Tina Turner left. She walked away from the act she had helped build from the ground up. She walked away from the name above the marquee. She walked away with 36 cents and a mobile gas card. That is not a metaphor. That is what she reported having when she left. She spent the next several years rebuilding from near zero. Vegas lounge performances, television appearances when she could get them, filing for bankruptcy, taking it 1 week at a time, 1 gig at a time. She was 44 years old when What's Love Got to Do with It came out in 1984, 44 years old. The song went to #1. The album Private Dancer sold 20 million copies worldwide. Tina Turner won 4 Grammy Awards that year, including Record of the Year. She became the face of one of the most unlikely comeback stories in the history of popular music. Ike Turner continued to record. He would have a long life, but he never produced another commercial moment that approached what Tina built without him. And here's the number that puts everything in perspective. Tina Turner went on to set the Guinness World Record for the largest concert audience for a solo performer. 180,000 people in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. 180,000 people in one place to see one person perform. The woman who left with 36 cents. If you've ever had to start completely over, not almost over, completely over, you know what Tina Turner's 1984 means. It's not just music history, it's proof. It's proof that the person they counted out can build something the people who counted them out never touched. And if you've ever played What's Love Got to Do with It in the car with the windows down, not because you were trying to make a point, just because it felt that good, you already know exactly who #1 is. That's Tina Turner. That's #1.